there's an African proverb that says, until the lion wins the race, we'll only hear the hunter's story.
I greet you in the term my ancestors. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
In the term aquaba. You turn around and look at the top right there, that word. That's a tree. It's a word derived from the tree tribe of Ghana.
The drinking bowl, for the old man is waiting for to carry you to freedom. Follow the drinking bowl.
The monkey wrench turns the wagon wheel towards Canada. With help from Jesus the carpenter, follow the bear's trail through the woods. Fill your baskets with enough food and supplies to get you to the crossroads. Once you're at the crossroads, dig a log cabin in the ground. Shoefly told us to dress up in cotton and satin bow ties. Follow the flying geese and birds in the air. Stay on the drunkard's path. Take the sailboat across the Great Lakes to the North Star above Canada. Son, you gotta know that in this life, people will try to confuse you. You will get lost, and when you lose your way, remember that your ancestors were astronomers. They traveled thousands of miles with only a star as their guiding system. So when you lose your way in this world, and people try to confuse you about who you are, remember that I said you were a king. And may these words resonate in your heart and in your mind forever. May they be your internal guidance system so that you may always find your way back home to yourself.
And so instead of following the rules that didn't make sense, my father, Medgar, Martin, Malcolm, and so many others, so many other women, Mary McLeod Bethune, Rosa Parks, Fannie Lou Hamer, Coretta Scott King, they literally laid their lives down. And see, what I understand is it's not just about if you're willing to die, because I've seen a lot of people ready to die over some foolishness. But raise your hand if you are here ready to live. Ready to live, because that's a whole other conversation. Oftentimes it takes more courage to live than to die, and I never really understood that. So my father gave up his comedy career, and he gave up all of his Hollywood celebrity for the civil rights movement. So one day I asked him, I said, Daddy, why was Dr. King so important to you? He said, let me tell you something, baby girl. When I was a young man, I used to watch John Wayne movies. I used to own a 350 Magnum and dare a sucker to say something to me. He said, but Dr. King changed that. He taught me what manhood really looked like. He said, so to sit there, baby girl, I'm talking about a time where 4 little girls were bombed in a church. Emmett Till's face was disfigured and I couldn't stop a white man from slapping my mom. He said, but let me tell you something, baby girl, there we were, marching. Sharecroppers who couldn't even read or write. Grandmothers on canes and babies. And there we were, marching. With sheriffs, state troopers, and federal guardsmen, guns pointed right at us. And guess what, boo-boo? We see fear in their eyes, not ours. That's what this movement was about. I'm talking about the strength of black grandmothers and grandfathers. I'm talking about the strength of young black children who have freedom in their eyes despite the disrespect that they've been through. Everybody in this room has been disrespected by this country. And so much of our acting out is because you have been treated as something other than what you are.
Hit me!
Individuals should partake in things different than what they've been sold. Your mind is your only true treasure. You are black gold.
Damn, this nigga got his hammer drawn.
This nigga got the gun out though.
You got his gun out?
This nigga got the gun out. It's 2 more cars.
There is not one generation in this city that has not been under attack, period. Whether it was slavery, whether it was Reconstruction, whether it was the Depression that was already the Depression, whether it was the annihilation of the arts, whether it was the Civil Rights Movement, whether it was the bombing of the Civil Rights Movement, whether it was the heroin that hit in the 70s, whether it was crack in the 80s, whether it was the violence of the 90s, at what point has any generation, particularly of black people in this city, had a break? Not one. So who are you when your mitochondrial DNA is insisting to be beautiful in the face of that kind of unrest, insisting upon it? Because you know that even though you have all these guns in your face and even though you're under attack, if you digest that as part of your identity and you don't create beyond that perspective, your entire line will die. It's not an option. So creativity in Baltimore is not this thing because, oh, I have extra time on my hands. Or, oh, I have this ability that I don't have to work, or I have some sort of like somebody's funding me. Creativity is a matter of a lifeline. This is how people survive here. And nobody's waiting for an institution to call it art. It doesn't make sense. Because it's not, it goes back to the most traditional form of art and creativity, that it is a part of how you're formed and function. You're not creating a chair just because it's beautiful. You're creating a chair because you have to sit in it every day, and you want things that are, you want to sit in your own divinity, so you make it beautiful.
Hands up, look down. That won't keep you right the ground.
We as third world people have constantly been involved in low intensity warfare. Warfare waged against us for no other reason than the color of our skin. The whole question of critical race theory is a question of war. The failure to crystallize our ability to explain our history in the terms that our people can understand and apply it to an educational format is a stage of war that was perpetrated by the slave owner. The fact that we have made a choice during those slave rebellions. Yeah, we went north. We escaped north. We went to Canada. We went all kind of places. And there's a political explanation about why we went or chose that area. Those areas. Because it was a warfare, ways that they could explain to their population as being humanistic. But you don't hear about the Gucci's and the Gulags and the Seminoles. These warriors who fought the South, heading south, not north, in order to build themselves a black nation to protect the black people.
Knowing that we will be free one day. Thank you. Thank this movement. I'm not talking about the ones we know about. I'm talking about the ones we
On the other side of the man the world knows as Dick Gregory is a woman. A rock. Superhero. Have you ever lived with a superhero before?
So if you ever thought about fighting, this is the time to fight. I do not want our grandchildren and our children fighting these battles again. So I'm going to be one crazy grandmama, and I hope it's going to be a whole lot of more. But this is our time to step up to the plate, to make sure that we don't go backwards. And I just have great faith that black women can do anything we put our minds to. And nobody is going to work harder for our children than we do. Nobody's going to save them unless we do. And we got to be strategic. We got to figure out what everybody's going to be doing, because it is a 50-front war. They're trying to tear down everything. They want to really redistribute more money to the rich at the expense of the poor.
Let me teach you. He'll probably use his powers to seduce you. Just let him think that the thing is mutual. Because when he found out that you already knew the Adam had a positive, a negative, and a neutral, he'll probably salute you, but wait till you tuck it back like a coward and shoot you. Direct into the
15-year-old African-American children in the city of Chicago. So I'm not shocked by my people being here in support of their children.
What this is teaching Brandon as far as
An injustice anywhere, in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., is a threat to injustice everywhere. And so I want Brandon to know that when an injustice is done, it doesn't just impact you, it impacts an entire nation. And that's why we will continue to fight.
That's why I've been carrying two mirrors. One to see myself and the other to see how this world sees me. But this is who I be. I am a quarter MC and a quarter poet, a quarter hood rat and a quarter goddess. Naturally, this is who I be. My body was diseased and at unrest. I was told I couldn't get it all up front until I documented the test. And now I started listening, so I can hear my own transitioning, how I am one string in a symphony, and this is not coincidental. This is divine, because now I can hear my ancestors speak to me, their prayers in my rhymes. Yes, I survived because I surrendered.
Food, does it taste the same?
Yeah, actually. Tastes a little bit better. Damn, the chicken is a little bit better than back home. Thank you. Enjoy and come to the
I'm gonna have to stand out and enough lane to go and play. But for now it's just a big dream, cause I find myself in a place where I'm last seen.
You what she remembering talking. Now all the evidence was smothered under a big cloud of rubble. The Pope is his brother. The hillside is his mother. That statue with the torch still eyes is his mother. She's a harlot who stood still in time while New York turned scarlet and the levee monster sucked up the water.
They had houses on top of houses down here. It's the most forgotten part of the city.
Yeah, because the water came in.
He's gonna spray that way. We are survivors. Survivors. Survivors of the
our nation.
Take whatever. Take that till I got high. And one on you. Lord, I still matter. Lord, I gonna take a chance. Lord, I still matter. Don't pop that new and pop that three. Lord, I still matter. Lord, I still matters. Lord, I still matters. Oh, oh, hey, hey. Lord, I still matters. All right, all right, all right, all right, hey. Oh, hey, 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 Lord, I still matter.
In my heart, it was legendary. PBS came back and found his death record. Over 100-some people has died from those pre-existing conditions. So, if Flint is recovering, but what do you call recovery? I thought I was strong enough to sit in this meeting, but I'm not. I have a grandson who had a mental breakdown because he had 48 hours to put his dad to sleep.
We also have to address the fact that the overwhelming majority of the times that African Americans are actually depicted in the media, they're depicted in a way that's like such a broad brush that basically says that we're all okay with the criminal fraternity if we're not members of the criminal fraternity. But it doesn't deal with shit like the fact that like in places like Washington, D.C., places like New Orleans, places like Detroit, places like Harlem, places like St. Louis, places like Compton, people are undereducated so they can be of labor class. The school that I went to for elementary school is William France Elementary School. It's actually the first desegregated school in the country. It's a block away from my house. I didn't get a school book until I was in 9th grade. Think about that. I'm just keeping it real with you, right? So the thing is, no one's dealing with the systemic shit that actually builds that type of dynamic, where a guy feels more comfortable getting a 45 special than actually reading a job application. Think about how deep that is, right? But at the end of the day, my brothers and most of the people that I actually grew up with are not okay with the criminal fraternity. They're not criminals. They just people just like you. But at the end of the day, most of the images that you actually see of them depict them as being such. When someone comes into my neighborhood and shoots my little brother down, you sitting there thinking, what did he do to deserve it? What did this kid do to deserve that shit? I don't give a fuck. This is a 15-year-old gets gunned down. You're supposed to have some patience here, police officer, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm asking everyone in this room to reevaluate how they think and to take a moment. If it's making you uncomfortable, I'm sorry if you're uncomfortable while you're sitting here comfortably sipping on a cocktail. Right? But there's actually people that are on the front lines of class warfare that's going on in this country, and people acting like it's not happening. It is happening. Do you understand?
Right here and right now, we're witnessing a dumbing down of music. Hey, 'cause they know it's in the vibration. Oh, it's a healing stimulation. And some folk don't want no part of the healing and the feeling and the freedom of our people. Oh, hey, 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 hey.
And I do think there's something very specific, like my friend Fred Moden, he articulated this thing that's in Frank Willison's book, where he says, you know, this idea hard, and Frank Willison had reminded him that we have to remain in the whole, like in the hold of the ship. You know, there's something important about remaining in the hold of the ship, because very paradoxically, in the whole of the ship produces that kind of radical circumscription of your mobility, so produces these imaginative flights. Like in a sense, there is a real ontological sort of frame of who Black Americans are. I mean, we have a very particular kind of expressivity that's completely bound up with being constrained, you know?
I love you because you're grimy. That's it. We love grimy, you know. It always keeps you on your toes, you know. And in life, you gotta stay on your toes wherever you are. And growing up in a place like this, for the folks who do, it teaches them. And that's the difference to me between like the East Coast vibe too. It's like definitely more edgy where you keep a lookout, you know. This is what it is. We know how it goes.
The revenge concept destabilizes the narrative. Revenge, revengeance. I mean, you're talking about the vendetta. You're talking about Europe. You're talking about this whole notion of bloodlust and blood must call for blood and somehow blood must answer. These are very important notions. But to put it where you put it, and then to insert pieces, there are two things that happen, and I'll end with this. I think there are two things that happen. One is the introduction, the visceral, as you say, the visceral reaction. Then the second thing is the ongoing one. It's an interesting narrative choice to use, "There he is" from Rose Wright, because I think three of the most important words spoken in the last 100 years in this country are "I Question America," Fannie Lou Hamer, sitting in 1964, and what they say Rose Wright said, "Darky." In other words, not "there he is." This is, in other words, the language of hip hop, the language of what they would call vernacular, but what we would say is the Africanization of this language. That moment of subject position, darky. In other words, I am the subject. You're on my periphery, and then I got to leave Mississippi for that. But in that notion, what you all did was introduce the African as subject. And say that whatever narrative you think you're narrating about who we are, about the last, that about 60 seconds where you went through the montage of people who have been killed and you don't know what we're going to do next. The bringing in of the 1970s stuff, the narration. I mean, you know, I'm a Kerry James Marshall fan. And so Kerry James Marshall is the man. But this brother right here, Hebrew, is in that genealogy. I'm looking at him saying, damn, this is Kerry James. This is the next iteration of the genealogy. There's got to be a curriculum around this whole piece, man. That's what I'm thinking. That's just a handful of glimpses, because there's a lot more too, but I want to stop down, man. But thank you for this piece. I think it's a transformational thing.
Was a mama's boy. He was always smiling. He had always had a good attitude. And I used to tell him attitude is everything. So even when things look great, that it's all on how he accepted things. And so I remember like when I was sick, he would try to fix me soup. It wasn't very good, but he tried. I remember that I used to call his name, because we used to call him Trey. We didn't call him Trayvon all the time. We called him Trey. And I would say, Trey, and I would yell for him to come upstairs to my room. And when he came upstairs, I would ask him, can you pass me the remote that's right here? And I don't care how many times I did it, he was just, you know, he had the right attitude and he didn't mind. And it didn't matter where we were. We could be at the park, a grocery store, anywhere. And if he wanted a hug or a kiss, he got a hug or a kiss, you know.
Photographer. cameras. So we made these big ass motherfucking TMZ badges, right? That was our costume. We had the camera, so we out there. Dude, they got us in the parade. Like the police was like, oh, they pressed and let us in the parade. So we got all these ill shots and we just went crazy. And then we just made the video instead of the treatment. We sent them the video, and they was like, oh shit, they went with it. And they gave us the money, and guess what we did?
I thought to myself, well, what if it turns out that that drive that you were claiming is necessary in visual art to achieve that level of, what do you want to say, alienation and that black music achieves? What if it's not a drive that needs to be so much implanted in the visual realm, but that it's already there, which would mean that it's already there in work that we see, but it's also there in a whole bunch of work that we don't see because we didn't have access to it because it was never understood to be art.
You know, a black person dancing, that's just like, this is the most amazing thing. On the face, everybody knows it. It don't mean anything beyond that, right? So I think like when Hortense's reading about this whole thing of they were using it to vent, right? This rebellious energy, or the whole idea that in the classic mind, I'm thinking, we have to begin to try to unpack all these kinds of things. You know what I'm saying? And it's often not what is true. It's not a true or not true. It's like, how do we frame, as she said, a poetic response? How do we frame our circumstances in the most productive way? In a way that's going to elicit the most emancipatory possibilities for us on the collective level and on the individual level.
Yeah, I'm a drawing from a flag in the head about the weekend like a tender problem, but I never tell a problem. I'm a boss, no bitch, some things is necessary. Very whole body like Debbie, like holding in January. Hold up in your commentary, believe in what I was saying. Talking that you ain't ready. You deal with women from my pedal. If you need control of owner, only need your manager. I'm walking by, smelling like the leg and never. I'm fucking this point, sir, only need your family. How do I hold you for what's already mad? I heard that I'm over every damn now. Only concerned with my money, but you brought on down. Take the revolution, pop it off, I'm on front line. Sometimes being a woman's like being black twice. Gotta stay fire instead of gray, but you tell me to act nice. Look pretty, stay slick, don't talk loud. Don't think, don't feel, don't act proud. But if I'm at my lowest, how you 100%? Down there, woman and man, for the balance of it. So with the real men, please stand up and defend what God made, son and daughter. Love you.
Every evening. Hi, he said. I said hi, and I kept going. And he kept following me. And so finally I said, where do you live? He said, I live 321 West 78th Street. I said, oh, all right. That meant every night I had an escort because I lived on 74th Street. Whether I wanted it or not, I had an escort. And the escort was Arthur Mitchell. We made one stop.
We hit the stage and fly back to our nests. No one is free when others are oppressed. We hit the stage and fly back to our nests. No one is free when others are oppressed. So we hit the stage and fly back to our nest like no one is free when others are oppressed. So we hit the stage and fly back to our no one is free when others are oppressed. We hit the stage and fly back. Sammy Davis Jr. Django.
You want to make America hate again. Trends blended with dog whistles, use the fiscal, get ignorance to take the bait again. Get black folk to wait again in lines lined with privilege and falsehoods. For centuries we've lost good souls to the cause, cuz you ain't dealt with your demons. National anthem is a choir of 1,000 mothers screaming for no good reason. Just another cycle of hate-filled seasons. Heavy breathing with anxiety, we pledged our allegiance, our grievance. Spilled blood for the country we love on bended knees. We bend a knee from protest, music, literature. We fought so you can see that we're stronger together. Better do right by us, cause history shows that no reign lasts forever. Okay. Yeah.
That's how that's done, right?
To the mysteries of faith. Absalom, returning with song, crouched over that drum, he is David, singing.
Join me at the table.
His precepts
She
are
started
the
saying in
scepters
Zulu.
of Judah, long times dangling from his chin.
After communion service was over, she said to me, it was so nice of Dr. Sitoli to come teach you that song. I said, what song? She gave me the Zulu name. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. She started singing it. I said, that's not a Zulu song. She said, they still sing it in my village. And then it hit me. Africans took a tune during slavery that they got from home and put English words to it. Greg, I don't know how often they do this at Howard University. Here's the song right here, if you know it, with my broken voice. Come on, help me. Okay. I love the Lord. He heard my cry. I love. I still singing in Zulu.
Fact that in terms of black art and the history of black art, the fact that we throw that out so easily, which I think is a freedom and a privilege to be able to say that kind of thing, like I do it for me, it's all for me. I think that's a privilege. It's a wonderful thing to be able to say. But I also think that like there was a whole history and a lineage of people who did not have the opportunity or the privilege to make art for art's sake. And perhaps we could argue that you're honoring them by doing it, but I also think you need not dismiss the legacy in which they've laid forth. And it's okay for you to say, I am making art for this particular people. I love children. I'm making art with them in mind. It is my art. It is coming from me. It has all the integrity of me. It has all of the sophistication that I want to bring to it. But make no bones about it, I am writing it for them to consume. And I shouldn't, there's nothing wrong with it. If anything, it's an honor to be doing that work. I don't know why we tiptoe around it as if it's a badge of honor to say that I make art selfishly. I don't know why that's, I don't know. And furthermore, I feel like I'm as authentic as I am. I try to be my whole self, my full self all the time, and it shows itself in the work. And I think young people read that and say, look, whether I connect to it or not, I know he's honest. So I'm making art for me, and in doing so, honestly with myself, I'm making art for them. But I'm not gonna pretend like they're not in the forefront of my mind at all times, especially black children. I was a black child. And I'm not gonna ever feel small or ashamed or run away from the fact that it matters to me to show black children in a million different circumstances, being wholly and totally themselves, not always being the cool kid or the tough kid, but being the misfit and the nerd and the video game kid and the dancing kid and the gay kid and all the other things that black children deserve and have the right to be.
However, it also invites connections to Mary Thomas, a black woman from Antigua, a cane cutter, a queen labeled so by her community for her leadership. And she, along with other men and women, led one of the largest labor revolts in Danish colonial history on the island of St. Croix, where I'm from. Maimouna X D creates a bridge to connect each of us to the stories of survival and resistance, the beauty and humanity of those who died, survived and fought against slavery and colonialism. The coral stones connect us to the often invisible structures of colonialism. the labor of enslaved Africans who often built these societies. The piece, however, connects to the 16-year-old me who walked around campus, and despite my desire and faith that I belonged here, looked around and not seeing much that reflected me, often wondered at times if that was true. It moves me the most to know that there will be a version of that world today that will see this work and know that it is true, that you do belong, that you have the right to take up space and dream and pursue your artistic and intellectual desires. And for that reason, among many more, the sculpture has found the perfect home here.
If you get to heaven, you know I do. Swing down there is nothing, let me ride. Tell all my kinfolk I am coming through. Swing down there is nothing, let me ride. Oh, rock me Lord, come and easy. I got home on the other side. Shoot, 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 shoot. Wow, 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 wow.
If an dollar was coming, we are going to my own country, typical Maroon country, I'm on here. You really see the sight, you have to go to my own country. There's one at the garden, there's one right there, there's one about the bit. And so the enslaved African will go out to the ocean and collect the coral. So those who live along the coast, who get planted along the coast, they're a little bit more richer.
I think that everyday people want to understand what's happening around us. When they walk through a forest, they don't just want to know why the trees are the way they are, what the birds are, and how the soil supports this big forest. They want to know, what did human beings do to bring this forest into existence? And in the case of St. Croix, where I am today, that's slavery. And the global economy at that time in the 1700s through the 1900s relied on the very ecosystem changes that happened right here where I'm sitting. And I think that relationship between the wealth of the globe, the suffering of African people, and this forest here today is a story that needs to get told.
DA checked the temperature. Some of these ones in Louisiana were getting up to like 1700 degrees in the firebox. So you can imagine how hot it was in that building around that thing. And it has to get sequentially hotter. The stalks that they crushed, they let them sit there and dry because all this would have been just cane, so there weren't any trees really left to burn. So they used the stalks, the stalks of the cane to fire these boxes. And it gets so hot that it'll form this like nodule of like glass basically that we find at the archaeological site called bagasse. It's all the silicate cell walls of all that cane stalk being fired to the point where it turns into kind of a almost glassy rock material. And they take those chunks of that bagasse and use it to build buildings too. So sometimes you'll see blocks that just, it was that hot, man. It was turning grass into like impure glass.
Damn.
Yeah. So the crushing part, people lose their arms and hands. And then during one of the main things of the Danes saying that they were so benevolent and saying that they had to take care of their enslaved people was not turning out people who had their hands and arms cut off just into the streets to force them to actually take care of those people. After emancipation, working in this thing, they didn't have to take care of you. If you lose your hands, you lose your mind from getting baked in there, anything happens to you, you can't hang. It's up to your family to take care of you at that point.
Your ancestors, my ancestors, our ancestors, they had the spine, they had the courage, they had the cojones to tell the white man right there in the foot, free now or else. These are things to make our children proud. But they good for not mislead us. They don't want our children to know the truth. Why would people who look like you and I, people we elect to office, governor, lieutenant governor, delegate to Congress, senators, why they don't want you to know the truth of your own ancestors?
We got here Thursday night, and the goals were just kind of to figure out how I was going to set up this dissertation project about Africa Town. And I was hopeful, but I don't think I expected it to be as fruitful and as valuable just to my own personal education as it has been. We kind of, ran the full gamut. We were able to talk to professors of archaeology who are housing artifacts in their museum. We were able to see the artifacts from Africa Town. We were able to visit Africa Town and the memorial stone to Kasula or Cujo Lewis, which was really powerful just to, have read all these things in anticipation of coming here and then just like seeing them materialize in front of you. It was just, I don't know, it was crazy. We ate a lot of food, and I feel like something that wasn't necessarily like in the plans, but really was a moment for me, was when we walked around Black Mobile and we saw these two men sitting out in their, front yard. And we went up and we started speaking to them, and their names were Gary, also known as Pi, and Leroy, and their brothers, and just getting to just hear about their experience and hear them talk about their childhood and just the balance of all these, oppressive structures that they were living with, and not being able to go past a certain street and remembering when they first went to an integrated school, and then hearing that paired with just how much they truly did love and appreciate and have nostalgia for their childhood, and then to see that paired with their two of their grandsons sitting on the steps of the same house that they grew up in, and just knowing that in however many years, in like 67 years, they would be in the same position, God's willing, and being able to think about how they would characterize their experience in Mobile as opposed to their, elders' experience. And I think just talking to them was, a first moment where I didn't feel like I was still learning about how to do anthropology, but I felt like at the same time, for the first time, I was actually doing it. So yeah, that was really powerful. I went by the next day and I dropped off a card. And then, unfortunately, we didn't get to meet as many descendants of the Clotilda as I think we all would have wanted to, but people are busy, and I'll be back and I'll get a chance to meet them. But I'm really excited.
Pole, pole.
So there's like a free-flowing just approach to life that's congruent with everything that I'm doing.
There's nothing to question, just trust everything.
You got less than 24 hours on your motherfucking first trip to the continent. Fucking hiking Kilimanjaro.
Yeah.
is on a mission. From Nova Scotia to the southernmost ocean, I boast for old tradition. Unless a man a comatose and frozen in a Polaroid, I play my own position. A couple times they kicked me out of school, even though I pay my intuition. Even though I pray for better days, pops is locked up in a metal cage. Old Joe's with the cornrows, ahead of me.
You have someone who's logical thinking and needs to know definite answers about stuff. This ain't for them.
I guess it's like a personal development experience. It's total surrender. Let us know that's what walking Kilimanjaro is. I know, but I played it.
Not what I'm saying. You can't even quantify into words the magnitude of more of us need to see this. You know what I'm saying? Like, we already making it happen back in the States, so imagine what type of magic you can create out here. You know what I'm saying? It's just crazy. I already feel it. Yeah. It's beautiful time to set your intentions. This is unheard of. Like, I could be done right here, and I can get to right here, and if they said that we were done, like, that'd be cool. You know what I'm saying?
Which only means that, like, the last few days, like, I feel like it's gonna go from like, yo, this is amazing, yo, this, like, to like epic. You know what I mean? Because that other terrain, walking snow in Africa, you know what I mean? That's just like the whole levels upon levels. And like, if you think the view is something now, what's the view gonna be on top of the mountain?
You gotta say to the people, please.
Pull it.
What's the lost man's medicine?
You'll learn later.
Things that Jessica and I really wanted to focus on, not only creating a network for archaeologists of African descent, but really creating the platform to talk more deeply about African diasporic history worldwide and what it means to have people of African descent doing the storytelling. So many of the sites that are excavated that have to do with African heritage, African diasporic history, are excavated by non-Black individuals. And oftentimes that history then becomes extrapolated in different ways. The story is really to push forth a different kind of narrative. But something that Justin and I are really working towards, and a lot of the members of the SBA, is really saying, you know, what does it mean for us to be at the helm of sharing our stories? What does it mean for us to take charge of that history, not only in the creation as well, and creating space for younger students after us to do the same. And I think it breathes more space into Black experiences and the richness and fullness of our experiences, because what we're sharing about Black history in our textbooks is often flat and truncated. But we're here to really flesh out the fullness of Black history.
Now this unit here is part of a larger excavation of the enslaved community. We know from historical photographs and maps that they were built in literal rows. These structures were roughly 6 meters by 3 meters each, and they were built next to each other. We don't know how far these rows extended. We do know at the height 141 enslaved individuals were living here. But we don't know the level of occupation and how these structures actually got built over time. If they built them all at once, or some of them changed. We do know they started as wattle and daub, and over time they started building them out of this coral lime masonry. So that's what we're looking at right now. We are excavating a unit. We created a unit that is half inside of the house and half outside of the house, to try to capture what we believe is going to be the foundational wall that's going to run through the middle of this. And then we're going to take all the material coming from the south and separate it from all the materials coming from the north.
my inbox, and I'm just grateful.
I'm gonna try this.
Try it.
I'm gonna be sitting without music for like a month. Like, maybe my internet is down. And I want these, so I could be like the honey nut Cheerios.
Why are you the 5th person today to say that?
Because that's
everybody's coming today, and they're like, I only see these on the box. I've never seen these in real life. That's so funny. They're real cute. Sour coconut green curry.
Oh, that smells good. Have to bring Billy here. Is that tea?
The coffee. The coffee is the yeah, the coffee.
Which tea is that?
This one is. Oh no, wait. This doesn't just taste.
It's here. It's the smell.
Oops, sorry.
Pomegranate green tea.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then this one is the apricot lilac. I'm getting them both. I'm like, it's for business, right? It's your business?
Yeah.
So I'm getting them both.
I'm grateful.
This all works on chicken. I know you do chicken. So I've been here 1 year. September 4th made 1 year. Yeah, it's been fun. Totally different than what I was doing before this. It's a fun ride. A fun ride. Thank you.
I'm gonna get these for sure.
Cool. I thought I had to put it on the ground.
How come you don't write your dreams down more when I ask you? Oh, your dreams.
Wouldn't want to be so bad if you got if you got it, oh my god, that cotton candy.
Whether there will be so
If my friends won't be anymore.
There shouldn't be any badness when it comes to your dream. That's all. I would hope that there's none of that in your treatment. I would hope. Yeah, I don't believe it's the other way. Alright, you can try.
Oh, I have ambitions, dreams. But dreams don't come cheap.
I saw a demon on my shoulder, it's looking like patriarchy, like scribble blood out the ceiling and bleach and another carpet. How my house get running? My twin body don't embody all the life she wanted. The baby just 19, I know I dream all black. I seen her everything, immortalized and freeze all caps. They say they found her dead. One girl missing, another one go missing. One girl missing, another, but niggas in the back quiet as a church mouse. Basement studio when duty calls to get the verse out. I guess the ego hurt now, it's time to go to work. Wow, look at him go. You really down to write about me when the world is in smokes? When it's people and trees, when George was begging for his mother saying he couldn't breathe. You thought to write about me? One girl missing, another one go missing. One girl missing, another one. Yo, little did I know all my reading would be about there is trans women being murdered, and this is all he can offer, and this is all y'all receive. Distract you from the convo with organizers. They talking abolishing the police, and it's a new world order. We democratizing Amazon, but burn down borders. This a new vanguard. This a new vanguard. I'm the new vanguard.
Well, they got some trains come around the bend. If you don't get there in time, you will not get it. No, get on board. No, get on board. No, get on board. Say there's no more to the other. Oh, get on board. Oh, get on board. Oh, get on board. Say there's no more to the other. Choo, 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 choo. Well, let's make get on this hit train. Don't use your fear as an excuse not to make a change. Oh, get on board. Oh, get on board. Oh, get on board. Say there's no more play. Oh, get on board. Oh, get on board. Oh, get on board. Say there's no more play. Oh, choo, 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 choo. Wow, 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 wow.
That's the next transition to the other side. They're looking through down, man. So say their names. Let me hear y'all say their names. And that's what for the killer granddaughter. Say their names.
It is uncrushable. In those quiet conversations, leading by sheer example, they imparted into us the thirst for education, impressed upon us the knowledge that we had a right to dream and to have aspirations just like anybody else. But most of all, they very subtly but consistently released into us a sense of responsibility that we all have to our ancestors, that we must continue to strive for the better life for ourselves and for our families for now and for generations to come.
My crew material, your crew material, my crew material. They're seat killers, milk your cereal. Get it? Forget it. You'll still be connecting the dots with smoking holes in your fitted. Those that got it be all at the shows going fitted. The light from the dynasty side flows all the prints. Narrow the soul out on their frog toes and ribbon. Towards the light before it coming. Sugar come candy coated lines for the dummies. Coated hieroglyphics in the shrine for the money. We not Illuminati, but our eyes on the money. My mind's on the scripture, it's beautiful. I see every line on the picture. So when the leaves rustle and the cock crows quicker, just know that the black God ain't gonna bit. Then the fingers I prick, then the single I pick. Man, I'm living out my brain, I don't drink about shit. If I say drink, I meant drink fresh, not Hampton. I got a date with destiny, I'm definitely not cancer. Romance, the stone, the rock, the drum, the elegant celebrations and tributes to every nation. Stars align like cars at Grand Central Station. Elevation, yours truly, my duty and obligation. Duly appointed ruler who move with no observation like WD. Say my name on the record, WW3. I put you niggas in the box like the WB. Here's a footnote on the blueprint. Who's fucking with we? Yeah. Bad grammar, widescreen panorama, paranormal activity seen on the camera. So if you want that turmoil on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, world star you. Rat radar, non-right, too dope for you. Your plans is foil, your guns is borrowed. We living in tomorrow. Attention for your sorrow. Chicago, make some motherfucking noise. How y'all feeling out there tonight? Y'all feeling good? We good, man. We good. How y'all doing? Babaragani? Hotel? Shalom? Salam alaikum? Hallelujah? And all of the above. Hey, Jay, man, where the album at? You listening to it. My life is an album. My life is a movie, and this is the soundtrack, baby.
That might be the game, set, match, drop the mic moment, but if anybody has a burning last question, we can take it.
No more questions?
We're not asking nobody for nothing. We get to stand in our power and our truth, and everybody's saying, so it is. It's already done. We already won. I love you.